Akirous was once the leader of the Great Beings on Spherus Magna. For centuries, the Great Beings would rule over the planet's inhabitants, the Agori, aiding their growth as a species. However, one day a powerful substance would emerge from beneath the surface of the planet, causing the beginning of the Core War. The conflict would spread across Spherus Magna, and as the Agori became divided, so too did the Great Beings. Their disputes would culminate in Akirous being betrayed and apparently killed, although looks can often be deceiving. This is the mock showcase for Akirous, the Great Being of Life. This video is made in collaboration with Bionicle Origin-1. Check out the full story using the link in the description below. Akirous, the Great Being of Life, stands approximately 10 inches tall, and has a piece count of 293 pieces, or 294 if you count the cloth piece on the physical model. This mock was completed in August of 2022, making Akirous the first Great Being to be represented in LEGO form. This was a major factor in the creation of Akirous, which dragged on much longer than I anticipated, mostly from a lack of ideas. What it ultimately came down to was finding the right inspiration, which came to me in the form of this artwork. I remember first seeing this depiction of a Great Being years ago, and its mystique is always caught my eye. This makes me picture the Great Beings as mysterious but also infinitely wise, which I felt was very synonymous with Akirous in particular. As he is the Great Being of Life, Akirous harbors much wisdom about the nature of existence, and the knowledge he carries makes him both intriguing and peculiar to those around him. After I found my inspiration, it didn't take long before Akirous was finished. Akirous' build took some turns to get to where it is today, and while the process was difficult at times, I'm very proud of the final result. Now I'd like to highlight some of my favorite features of Akirous, starting with the out-of-the-box techniques I used to make this mock a reality. When I first built Akirous, it was done using the program stud.io, which allows for the use of custom parts and custom colors. I would take full advantage of this when building Akirous. However, it would add some extra steps when recreating him as a physical mock. First, I would have to make 3D prints of the custom parts in Akirous' build, namely his kanoe and chest plate. I won't go too in-depth on the process here, as I actually have a separate video on the making of Akirous' Ignika, and the same steps apply to the chest plate as well. However, to give a brief overview, the pieces were made using a resin 3D printer and spray painted afterwards to make them gold. Speaking of, the mask and chest plate were far from the only parts I painted for this build. To ensure everything matched, I would also paint the other gold parts on Akirous, even if they came in that color officially. And since there are many brown parts that needed painting as well, I would also do the same for them. In addition to all this, Akirous also makes use of a non-LEGO element as well. On the physical model specifically, I gave Akirous a cloth piece that's meant to look like a set of robes. I know some people aren't a fan of using non-purist techniques on mocks, as in anything that isn't official LEGO or a modified version of an official LEGO piece. However, for me personally, this adds a whole new dimension to mocking that makes it a lot more interesting. Given that it's been over 10 years since we got any new Bionicle pieces, I feel like this is a natural evolution for Bionicle mocks as an art form. Next, I'd like to highlight one section of Akirous' build that I'm especially proud of. Akirous' lower leg design uses one of these old Technic limbs as a base, which I believe first came out with the slicers all the way back in 1999. In my opinion, the way this piece was incorporated into the lower leg creates a really unique and cohesive design, which is only further enhanced by this clever technique I used to attach the shin armor. While lower legs are rarely the most recognizable part of a mock, I'd still consider this my favorite part of Akirous' build. Now here's a quick showcase of the range of articulation that Akirous can achieve. Overall, I'd say articulation on Akirous is pretty standard, although the legs are limited by the ribbed hoses connecting back to the torso, and unlike many of my mocks, Akirous lacks any waist articulation. Overall, I'd say Akirous is a great mock whose only issues are more underlying problems with the way he was built. In terms of appearance, Akirous is nearly perfect in my eyes, but he's a bit fragile in some areas and stiff in others. As I mentioned in the section on articulation, Akirous' legs have very limited movement, and he has fewer points of articulation compared to my other mocks. In addition, there are some sections on Akirous that fall off very easily, namely the hands, which are only connected by a single 2-length axle. These flaws are likely the result of Akirous first being built in stud.io, which isn't a great indicator of the articulation or structural integrity of a mock. However, my primary goal when mocking has always been to represent the characters in my story as best I can, and by that measure, Akirous has more than succeeded. Those are my thoughts on Akirous, the Great Being of Life, but what do you think of this mock? Feel free to let me know in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching this episode of Bionicle Moc Showcase, and this is Pilot, signing off.